Everyone ready to begin? Just gonna check in. Okay. All right, we'll call this meeting to order. And we'll go ahead and do roll call. Who reads off the names?
Yeah. Chair Polly,
Present.
Vice Chair Ostavar.
Here.
Committee Member Palmer.
Here.
Committee Member Sanders.
Here.
Committee Member Turgenza.
Here.
Committee Member Turgeon. And we have Committee Member Hunter absent. Staff members present today are Planning Manager Hill, Principal Planner Roveri, Principal Planner Sabdo, and Recording Secretary Argenbright. And to remind the public how to participate, information on participating in this meeting and providing public comment, including remotely by Zoom or telephone, is on this meeting's agenda, which is online at isearchmonterey.org. Remote commenters will be muted until it is their turn to speak, and a timer will be shown on the screen. If you are connected on Zoom, the timer is accurate with no delay. In the chamber, we recommend keeping phones and devices muted to prevent audio interference with the meeting. Thank you for participating in your city government.
All right, we'll go ahead and open up the consent agenda. Is there any member of the public or the commission that would like to discuss a consent item? I believe our only item is minutes.
There are no attendees online with their hands raised.
Okay.
I move to approve.
So we have a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting. Any seconds?
I second.
Okay, we have a second from committee member Turgeon. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay. Chairman Turgenza abstains. So the motion carries. And if there are no other members of the public or commission that would like to speak, we'll open up for public comments for items that are not on the agenda. And if anyone would like to speak, please state your name for the record. Seeing nobody, we will.
There are no attendees online with their hands raised as well.
Okay. Seeing no public comments, we will move on to our first public appearance item.
Thank you. My name is Christy Sabdo, Principal Planner with the City of Monterey. And speaking with the applicant, Chris Summers, for the Monterey Plaza Hotel, he is asking for a continuance to a date uncertain to allow them to work with the Coastal Commission to ensure that their application is consistent with their coastal development permit. And then if the plan needs to be revised, they will come back and ask for ARC's approval at that time.
This is pertaining item number 3 on the agenda.
Right. So with the continuance, there's no action that needs to be taken with the committee, I assume?
So we'll still need a motion and a vote to continue the item to a date uncertain.
Okay. Anyone like to make a motion?
Okay, go ahead. I'll second.
All right. Gabe provided the motion. Patrick seconded. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right, the ayes have it. On to our second item, 121 Eldorado Street.
Thank you, Chair Polly. My name is Fernanda Roveri, Principal Planner for the City of Monterey. And I'll be presenting to you item number 4, consider 121 Eldorado Street, application ARP 240109 for preliminary and final architectural review of a new 2-story single-family dwelling. The applicant is Buck Blackwell. The owner is Orem Capital Investments LLC. The zoning district is COES. The general plan land use is commercial, and it was found to be exempt from CEQA. The staff recommendation is to adopt the resolution approving the architectural review permit. The subject property, as I mentioned, has COES zoning district, which is the office and professional district with a emergency shelter overlay. It's located in the El Dorado commercial office corridor. It has the commercial general plan land use designation. However, this area allows residential development as well as commercial development. And it allows a variety of residential development, from single-family dwellings to however many units can fit in a site up to the allowed density. A use permit is required for single-family dwellings in this zoning district. And as such, on November 21st, the zoning administrator approved a use permit amendment to allow the expansion of the single-family dwelling use on site. As you can see, there is an existing single-family dwelling. It is unoccupied at the moment, and the applicant would like to expand that use. Adjacent uses, next door, also a single-family dwelling, which is next on the agenda. And across the street, 2 single-family dwellings. And surrounding the property to the west, east, and south are hotels. Staff received a public comment on November 22nd, the day after the zoning administrator hearing, from the Inn by the Bay hotel staff. And this is the hotel located directly south of the site. The address is 936 Monroe Avenue. And the comment was regarding views. This comment was uploaded to our submitted comments website, and it was also attached to your agenda packet. The public comment included photos of the second-story hotel rooms of the Inn by the Bay Hotel. The photo that I'm showing on the left is a photo that I took, the view from El Dorado Street, looking at the existing dwelling at 121 El Dorado with the story poles and netting installed. And on the right side is a photo from the hotel staff from one of the second-story hotel rooms, and the view that it would have with the proposed home. The story poles and netting are outlining the proposed height and massing. The views that the hotel staff was concerned about, he didn't specify, but you can see a sliver of the ocean. It's very hard to see, but I identified it with the circles. You can also see the Santa Cruz Mountains and the sky and the horizon. So the applicant is proposing to demolish the existing 1,343 square foot dwelling and construct a new 2-story, 3,183 square foot dwelling. The lot coverage maximum in this zoning district is 50%. So you can cover your site up to 50% of the lot size. There is no floor area ratio maximum, meaning that you can have as much square footage as you can, but you are restricted to the lot coverage and the density and the height. So the proposed dwelling meets all development standards. including that 50% lot coverage maximum, all setbacks and height limits. And it includes 2 off-street parking spaces. One of them, the requirement is that at least 1 space be covered, but the applicant is proposing 2 covered spaces in the form of a 2-car garage behind the front yard setback. This is the site plan. On the left side is the proposed dwelling, and on the right side is the existing dwelling at 127 El Dorado, which is also gonna be discussed this afternoon. So you can see on the left side, the building would be bigger than the existing. The dashed lines show the existing dwelling. So the proposed would expand further into the site, maximizing that lot coverage. This is a snapshot of the first and second floors that are proposed. The first floor, you can see the 2-car garage and then a covered porch, which goes into a living room, dining room, kitchen combination. The stairs that go up to the second story are sort of in the middle, in the center of the floor plan. And on the second story, when you go up the stairs, there's a hallway, and then there's 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms on the second floor. The elevations show the stepped-in form of the proposed dwelling. So what I mean by that is that the first story occupies basically the entire up to the minimum required setbacks. So it would be a 30-foot wide dwelling on the first floor, and then on the second floor, because the setbacks are more restrictive, you would end up with a narrower second floor. And so the second floor width is 20 feet wide. This is the front. So the front is, you can see the garage and the front porch with the main entrance from El Dorado Street. And then the southwest elevation shows windows of the living space and the upstairs bedrooms. The northwest elevation shows how deep the dwelling is. It is a deep lot, and so the applicant took advantage of that. And the proposed height is 24 feet 7 inches, which is below the maximum 25-foot limit. The dwelling would follow the slope of the site. It has a shallow slope. It's lower at the street, and then it slowly goes up toward the back of the lot. Minimal grading would be required. The garage would be on a concrete slab, and then the rest of the house would be on footings, raised foundation. The proposed colors and materials include vinyl paneling above the garage door, vinyl siding on the first floor and second floor, stone veneer framing the garage and the pillars on the porch, and the trim would be black, and then the doors and windows would be metal black. The findings for approving the architectural review permit, there's 4 of them. The first one is that the proposed siding form, mass, and architectural style are appropriate for the site, the immediate area, and the city. The siding is restricted by the 40-foot lot width and the setbacks. And so the applicant is really maximizing that building width and is providing that stepped form on the second story. The mass is in character with the adjacent 2-story hotels. Let me show you. So you can see on the left side is a hotel. And the height would basically match that of the hotel next door. Yeah, you can also see here. The style is the building would use typical residential construction materials, such as the vinyl siding, the veneer accents, and the front porch. And the second finding is that the project will not unreasonably impair the views, privacy, or living environment currently enjoyed by other properties in the vicinity. As I showed you, the hotel staff identified view impacts, but staff found that the views were minimal to begin with. And staff searched the hotel's website the day that the public comment was submitted, and staff did not find any mention of ocean or bay views on the website. So it didn't seem like the hotel was boasting those views. And therefore staff believes that the view impacts are reasonable and that there are no privacy or living environment impacts. The third finding is that the project is consistent with city plans and design guidelines. The dwelling would meet the intent of the zoning district because it allows residential development types interspersed with commercial office development. And so this area already contains single-family dwellings, and it's a mixed-use area in that sense that you have dwellings and commercial development next door to each other. The proposed finish, colors, materials, landscaping, lighting, fencing, and all other exterior features are appropriate for the site's immediate area and the city, in that these are materials that are found in residential construction in Monterey, such as the horizontal siding and the metal doors and windows, the composition shingle roofing, and stone veneer accents. The applicant is proposing landscaping everywhere where basically where there is no driveway, there would be landscaping. So they're proposing a mix of arroyo lupin, rush milkweed, and hummingbird sage. And no trees would be proposed for removal. And a new fence with retaining wall would be proposed on either side and in the back. And this would be no more than 8 feet tall. With that, staff recommends approval. If I'm here, if you have any questions, and the applicant here.
Fernanda, can I ask a quick question? Is it possible for you to present the second project and we just discuss these together? They seem like identical plans on neighboring lots presented by the same developer. Just
I can present the project, but we have to treat them as separate
we
anyway.
have separate votes. I just
Yes.
wonder if our discussion might be simpler, unless anyone on the commission objects. They appear to be identical plans.
I'm just trying to think of any reason could get more complicated if we mix up conversations, but I don't see how that would happen. I mean, one's removing trees, the other isn't. I don't have any issue, but I don't feel strongly either way.
I'll defer to you. It seems like it might sort of streamline the whole dialogue if we do it.
Okay, I can present the next one, but then we still have to have public comments separate for each.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do the presentation and move forward and then come back and take public comment for the specific item. and then we can take public comment for the other item. But yeah, I can see where it'd be beneficial for the committee to have a full holistic view of what's being proposed for both lots before taking action on either item. Yeah, so we can move on to the staff discussion, and for anyone viewing the meeting, we will still be coming back for public comment on these items.
Okay.
Threw you a curveball, Fernanda.
No, that's fine.
I was going to send you an email earlier today. I didn't get around to it though.
Okay.
As Fernanda's loading that presentation, I'll just note as after the presentation, when we get into deliberation, we'll just want to be very clear whenever we're referring to addresses, so that we know what project.
For one, so this is item number 4, but I'll be presenting it now, and then we'll take public comment for both items separately. 127 Eldorado Street is also a architectural review permit for a new single-family dwelling, but this one includes a tree removal permit for 3 trees. And staff's recommendation is to adopt the architectural review permit with the tree removal permit. This is next door to 121 Eldorado Street. So it has the same zoning district and land use. And on November 21st, the zoning administrator approved a use permit to allow the new single-family dwelling use that is proposed. And the adjacent uses are very similar, hotels and single-family dwellings. The same public comment was submitted for 127 Eldorado by the same hotel staff member of the Inn by the Bay regarding views. And I'm showing a different view here. So on the left is a photo of the story poles for 127 Eldorado, showing the second story, the 2-story home that is proposed. And on the right side is a view from one of the second-story hotel rooms. And this view aligns with the 127 Eldorado home. And the orange netting is sort of covering the horizon. But I tried to zoom in, and you might be able to get a peak view of the ocean, but it's not very clear. And this is the photo that I used from the public comment. So the project is to demolish the existing 801 square foot dwelling and construct a 3,172 square foot dwelling. Similar to 121 Eldorado, 127 meets all development standards and is also proposing a 2-car garage. The site plan is very similar. It's almost identical. So it still has that 2-car garage in the front and then a covered porch on the right side. You can see the outline of the existing dwelling and the new being shaded in gray. The first and second floor plans are very similar to the other one. The living, dining, kitchen area are on the first floor, and then the second floor would have 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. The form is also stepped, same setbacks. So you would have a 30-foot wide first story and a 20-foot wide second story. The roof, however, is flat or almost flat. Meaning, so this would mean the height is less. It's only 23 feet tall. The other one was 24 feet 7 inches tall. And it follows the slope of the site as well. The footings and foundation would mimic the other project. For both projects, the ceilings are 9-foot ceilings. The materials, the colors are different, but the materials are similar. Both projects are proposing vinyl siding. The composition, wait, no, sorry. The roofing here is standing seam metal roofing. The other one was composition shingle. This one would have darker tones than the other one. The porch would still be nicely framed with a lighter stucco color, and the doors and windows would also be black metal. The findings for approval are very similar because the building massing and forms are so similar. Same setbacks as the other one, same building form, steps form. The massing is similar to adjacent 2-story hotels, and the building materials are also residential in character. The view impacts, staff believes that the view over 127 Eldorado would be very minimal. It would be a very sliver view of the ocean, if any. The view is already covered by trees, so if you can see there's already vegetation covering an ocean view, and the way that the story poles are shown, the flat roof would only cover a little beyond the vegetation. The project is consistent with city plans and design guidelines because, again, the district allows for residential development interspersed with commercial development. And the finishes, colors, and materials, like I mentioned, are residential in character and utilize earth tones and neutral tones. The front yard, either side of the driveway would be landscaped. There is one of the replacement trees would be located in the front. The side and back would have a retaining wall fence combination. The trees that are proposed to be removed, there's 3 of them, 3 oak trees. 2 of them are on the left side, like the left setback area, and one of them is in the footprint of the building, and they have 6, 7, and 9-inch diameters. They would prevent reasonable development of the single-family dwelling. Again, the zoning district allows a 50% lot coverage. So the applicant is really maximizing that, and the trees are in that footprint. The building envelope is restricted by the setbacks and the 40-foot lot width, and the applicant is proposing 3 replacement trees, 3 5-gallon oak trees, 1 of them in the front yard and 2 in the backyard. And with that, staff recommends approval of the architectural review permit and tree removal permit. I can answer questions now for both projects, and the applicant can also speak about them, and then we can take public comments separately.
Just so I understand, you mentioned at the beginning of the first presentation that there was really the the lot coverage is the 50% rule on the lot is the only real zoning reg in terms of area. Do I take that to mean that they could have had unlimited units as long as they maintained, like, could they have put like 6 studio units?
So
I'm just curious.
the current density maximum is 30 dwelling units per acre.
Mhm,
That is likely to change based on yesterday's
mhm.
planning commission city council meeting. They passed an ordinance to basically double the density to 60 dwelling units per acre, but that only passed first reading.
Mhm.
So it still needs to be heard again. But yeah, they can, I haven't done the calculation, but they probably can already build 3 dwelling units on
Yeah,
the
I think
site.
it's
based on the-
0.11 acres. So yeah, they probably could have done 3 units
Mhm.
per.
Yeah.
The link broke for me and I forgot to download it. So I was trying to look at the 121 site. Did they propose trees in that site? You didn't mention them.
No, I can show. I took photos.
I just mean the proposed.
The one where they're not removing trees.
Yeah,
Site plan doesn't
Oh.
show any.
yeah. I wasn't.
It doesn't let me show
I
photos.
wasn't remembering any, but yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
I thought I could show you the photos.
But in your PowerPoint, you do show kind
Okay.
of like an above plan.
I think he's asking specifically about proposed trees with the project. So there's none proposed,
Yeah,
correct?
it does, looks like none. proposed.
No, I just wanted to show they're gonna keep the existing.
I see some.
So there's.
Yeah.
I'm trying to zoom out. Okay. There's an existing oak tree and another one, and they're not proposing to remove these.
Okay.
There's another one in the back.
On the 121 site.
Yeah, this is 121.
And there is one in the back that they're not removing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, there's a lot. Like there's those, and then on the other side there's a bunch.
Yeah.
That I can show you.
They help, with privacy and things like that. But I just curious
On this-
what's
That's the other one, but here. Kind of. It's full of
kind of
trees.
it's a 10. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's this one here.
Survey, it shows the lemon, but it really doesn't show any trees
Anything back there, yeah.
Doesn't show any, the survey doesn't indicate any trees on the 121 site.
So they might
That's a stump.
they're showing, even though
Then this has the whole slew of oaks.
question, did any conversation come up as to the roof types and heights and why those lots? Or was there any conversation with you from the applicant, or
About the height.
there are 2 different roof styles? Is it just for variety? Is there any reason they weren't on one or the other site based on context?
I did not talk to the applicant about the reason for one being a flat roof and the other one being a gable. I think that they were just seeking variety and they didn't want it to look like the same
Yeah.
product.
But not why one was on.
No.
Thank you. With regards to trees, I'm forgetting what some of the steps are to reach us. Does the city arborist, is there any involvement with that? I know we have the opportunity option for 1-to-3 replacement ratio if we'd like. Was there an arborist report, anything like this on the status of those trees?
No, there's no arborist report required in the architectural review submittal checklist. And I didn't ask for one because they were proposing to replace them 1-for-1. And based on my experience processing these permits, I believe that that was adequate. Based on the other trees on site. I didn't want to ask for more because I didn't want the site to get overcrowded. And so I believe that, and the placement was reasonable to me. The replacement tree, there would be 1 oak in the front and then 2 in the back, and I thought that was reasonable.
I know that council has heard that water is imminent on the peninsula, but I don't believe it's here yet. So these projects are both using the second bath protocol from the water district, and they're limited in water and development by basically that factor.
Yes.
Any further questions from the committee? Would the applicant like to make a presentation?
Thank you. Honorable Chair, Commissioners, my name is Buck Blackwell, and the property owner consulted with my design firm to initially consult on the 2 existing single-family dwellings that existed on these 2 properties. On our site visit, we determined that not only were they in dire need of repair and rehabilitation, which would have been very costly, but they were also borderline substandard living conditions, pretty bad. So we advised the client property owner to consider taking on the arduous task of building 2 new brand new homes in the city of Monterey, and they did so, and that's what brings us forth here today. So we thank your consideration, and I'm open for any questions that you may have on the 2 properties. And as far as the views go, and the siding of the 2 houses, they were just based on the client's feedback and what she wanted to represent in those 2 spots. So thank you.
I had just a similar question, kind of follow-up question about the trees. Was there any consideration for planting trees on the 1-to-1 lot, even though there were
No, not just because it wasn't required. Yeah. There's definitely going to be some nice landscaping there, and it's kind of difficult because it's overshadowed by 2 hotels that are in slight disrepair, and we even had folks leaning out the windows talking to us that seemed transient in nature. So there's going to be some vegetation and screening, and maybe some other trees that aren't protected.
The rendering on the first house with the sloped roofs indicates vinyl siding on the first floor in the legend, but the rendering seems to depict it as stucco. Is the intention to use all vinyl siding? Sorry about this. So white.
I think that's just a rendering issue.
White vinyl siding, and then it's not. So, but basically all that, it's horizontal vinyl siding the entire house, with the exception of the stone columns. The flat roof house calls out a quarter inch per foot slope on the roof.
Correct.
So essentially a flat roof, but it also calls out a standing seam roof.
Correct.
So you're going to use a standing seam roof on such a shallow slope?
Yes. We do it many times. It's almost preferred than composition singles, as they will hold that water pretty well.
Any further questions for the applicant? So we'll open it up to
you.
discussion. Thank you.
We'll still need to take public comment on each
Oh,
item.
about that.
Yeah, no problem.
Any public
So
comments?
I think first we'll specify we're taking public comment for item number 4. This is the property at 121 El Dorado Street.
There are no attendees online with their hands raised.
Could you just go ahead and remind the public how they can participate in the meeting?
Information on participating in this meeting and providing public comment, including remotely by Zoom or telephone, is on this meeting's agenda, which is online at isearchmonterey.org. Remote commenters will be muted until it is their turn to speak, and a timer will be shown on the screen. If you are connected on Zoom, the timer is accurate with no delay. In the chamber, we recommend keeping phones and devices muted to prevent audio interference with the meeting. Thank you for participating in your city government.
Thank you. All right, it doesn't appear that we have any public comments, so I think we can go ahead and do start deliberation on this item and take action on this if the committee's ready. No, this is for 121. Unless the committee would like to take public comment on both items and then bring it back to the committee. Okay. Then we will go ahead and we'll allow the chair to open the public comment for item number 5, the property at 127 El Dorado Street.
Do we have any public comments for 127 El Dorado Street? Come up to the microphone and state your name.
Hi there, my name is Brent T. I don't live anywhere near this property, so I'm not directly involved, but I was just curious about the tree permits, about the fact they'd be replaced. Is there any conditions that they must maintain those trees? Because this being owned by an investment company, I assume they're going to recoup their investment and sell this house. Is there anything that would prevent the new owner from removing those trees from the site? Because I assume they would not meet the definition of 6-inch diameter trees by the time they sold it. And also I noticed there were, I think, 6 oak trees on the side of this lot as well, next to the house. And I see it was just based copy and pasted. They didn't seem to take any consideration that I wouldn't want an oak tree within 3 or 4 feet of my house, let alone 6 of them. I just didn't know if there's any consideration of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone online that wishes to speak?
There are no attendees online with their hands raised.
Thank you.
Fernando, would you like to field those questions at all? I think there's some pretty easy answers for some of that, at least.
So there is a special condition of approval for the resolution for 127 El Dorado that says that these replacement trees shall be preserved, and if they die or if they are removed for any reason, that they need to be replaced. So that's there. That's enforceable because it is a condition of the permit. And the other question, those oak trees that are on sort of in one line, they were not proposed for removal by the applicant. And so we have tree protection standards in our tree preservation ordinance, and they need to adhere to those to preserve those trees. If they, for whatever reason, if the trees get damaged during construction, we will require replacements, and there might be a fine associated with that.
Thank you.
Was there an arborist report required for this project for the removal?
No,
No.
they're not required by our architectural review submittal checklist.
Yeah, we typically get them. I think people tend to get them before coming to us, but it's something that's not required.
In the tree protection guidelines, do they dictate any certain diameter from which you're not supposed to excavate around a tree?
I believe it says in the drip line, usually that area should be protected. So the applicant will need to adhere to that.
Yeah, and if not, usually I think an arborist has to review and attend. Things like that. But
I guess that's where I'm going because there's no way you're in the drip line on that property line. So I guess we would just put that as a condition.
You can place a condition
Yeah.
that an arborist be present during excavation activities, or place more stringent tree protection requirements than what is in the code. That's your discretion.
yeah, I think more his point, I think, is the code, it would be impossible to adhere to that code based on
What we're
what
approving.
we're seeing.
Yeah.
And so if that's the case, then wouldn't somebody from city get involved in some way, usually before coming to us, but
Yeah, so no, these are excellent questions, and the situation here is it sounds like the committee's identifying where trees will possibly be impacted by the construction of the project. However, in this situation, those trees are not being proposed for removal. So I think another alternative that the committee, if they have concerns about the impacts to those trees at this time, they could make the assumption that those trees may end up being removed as a part of this construction and go ahead and require replacement trees in the event that that happens. And so the way the tree preservation ordinance is structured is that there's not actually an arborist report or input from the city forester required if it's associated with a development application. It's to the discretion of this committee to approve tree removals that are associated with a development application. So in the event that healthy trees are being proposed for removal for reasonable development of a site, this committee can approve those tree removals. So another option is that you can approve the removal of those trees with your action tonight and then go ahead and place a replacement requirement on those removals with this application.
This seems pretty speculative. So
agreed that it feels a little strange to sort of speculate that they wouldn't make it. I guess I guess I'm a little more used to, say, like a red line being shown for the drip line of the trees. And then that would be very clear to the staff and for us as well, which ones might, have that impact. And that would then trigger an arborist to say, get involved, or commentary. How are you proving to us that you're going to save these particular trees? Or if you're not, then that triggers your replacement requirements. So I think that's all we're noticing. That something like that seems like maybe perhaps got missed. But
well, and I've done, like, it's when I work for the city, I do ride-alongs with building inspectors and arborists, and they inspect that while they're on site. Am I wrong? Like,
Well, the building inspector won't be an expert on the subject matter of tree preservation and how, cuts to roots will impact the tree. A condition can be, as Fernanda mentioned, we can apply a condition to the project that a forester be present and they can assess the impact on the tree. The problem with that is that that's after the fact. And if that tree has not been approved for removal as a part of that development, they would have to return back to this committee to get those trees approved as a part of the development. At that point, the city forester would not be able to necessarily grant the approval for those tree removals because they were otherwise healthy trees, and he wouldn't be able to make that call. However, when it's associated with development, this committee can make that call. So it's a little bit of a complicated situation in that we it's an unknown at this point.
And just like my personal experience, we see this in Carmel all the time, where they approve a foundation that's within 3 feet of a trunk. And obviously you have to over X for the foundation. So by the time you're done digging, you're within 18 inches of the trunk and you've decimated 40% of the root structure of the tree. And again, I'm not taking a position one way or another, whether the applicant should be allowed to apply for the removal of these trees. We're going to develop these sites. We have to acknowledge that, but I also think that those trees are goners. I sort of feel like those, yeah.
Transparency.
I'm looking at a diagram.
Process, but
I just looked up drip line on the internet and it's showing a diagram of a tree that with roots extending probably at least the width of these yards.
Yeah, it's usually mirrors the canopy is typically
for
the
a mature
interesting.
tree. And
Yeah,
I don't know the age of these trees, but the older they are, the more likely it is to have spread.
a much larger.
Inevitably, it sounds like there will be impact to the roots, even if you're with outside of the drip line, as it were. So
absolutely. No, I mean, that's minimum. That's sort of the minimum requirement. Especially our oaks and stuff in California, they
Yeah.
spread way beyond to try and reach raw water and things, but that's usually just considered minimum to help it survive.
Yeah,
Still impacted.
another option could be conditions to require a certain level of tree protection during construction to limit the distance, restrict the distance in which the excavation could occur. Again, I don't know how feasible that's going to be in terms of the distance that's proposed from the foundation and the excavation required to the tree. But that's another option available.
Sorry, did you say in the scenario where, say, I forget how many of those trees were, half of them die, all of them die, would that just trigger an automatic replacement for those?
So
If they die during construction?
well, if they were, it's unlikely they would die during construction. What's more likely to happen if there was an impact to the tree is that they would be impacted, the project would be finished, and then they would deteriorate in health over time. That would then become, over time, grounds for the city forester to say that there's been enough damage done to this tree that it's not healthy and there's grounds for removal here. So in that instance, there is typically a replacement requirement. That's to the discretion of the city forester at that point. This committee can also kind of take a look at that and say, why wait for, that to happen over time if that's a concern of the committee, and can go ahead and require a replacement ratio in the event that happens.
Okay.
should the replacement ratio apply within certain species of trees in this case?
Only certain species are considered protected trees under the tree ordinance.
And have we identified exactly which ones are?
The oaks.
The
Or the-
protected trees for a developed site is any tree that is 6 inches in diameter or more when measured 4.5 feet from the ground. It doesn't specify the species, it's by the diameter of the trunk.
Is it oaks and Monterey pines and cypresses are
Cypress,
usually
yeah.
considered more protected, but yeah.
So should we specify which should be subject to replacement? Should they be impacted?
Isn't that
Well,
the case?
there's only one that's less than 6 inches.
I
So
suppose-
there,
that was my assumption, is that, yeah, if they're replaced, they are being replaced by oaks as well.
so on the right side of 127 El Dorado, there are 7 oak trees. They're all 6 inches or above in diameter, except for one that is 5 inches. So technically, 6 of those trees are protected.
And just to the gentleman who made comment, is there a specific reason any of you would imagine that having an oak tree within certain distance of a roof or the side of the house could be, is this a hazard or is it just a view? Is there anything you can imagine?
I don't think it's a hazard.
I think they're saying that the root structure is going to be compromised and it will kill the tree.
Okay, is if that's the concern, we've addressed it, it sounds like, okay.
It's speculative.
Speculative, yeah. It may, I mean, it's got roots on the other side
I
of the.
propose that we would have a condition that if in the event the city forester keeps an eye on this property and that in the event that these trees don't make it, that there's a replacement, clause or whatever you want to call it, a condition that replace. I mean, otherwise we're just going to sit here for
Yeah,
half an hour,
Agree.
wondering if it's going to die or not.
Yeah, just schedule whatever we decide, annual, biannual visit.
I'd say
and-
12 months after.
Yeah.
After final inspection, that there's yeah, a condition that 12 months after final inspection, the city forester visit the site and verify the health of the trees.
I did appreciate it. It was interesting, the 121 site, noting that there were a desire to have trees and kind of screen some of those views of the adjacent hotel and properties. So that's appreciated. And I think the Oaks would do a pretty decent job of that. They take their time. So there are some other options, but if it's originally Oaks here, it might be nice to have some back in that memory. But I don't, if they are ones that end up dying during construction, I think we would replace in kind to that species. The other option I was considering, since we have the ability to say 2-to-1 replacement, things like that, would be to request or require a few more on that site based on the removals already permitted. Seems a little, if we're not doing that typically, we're given an opportunity with the site, I think, because there's space to do that and reason. But I feel, I guess, a little better just having the arborist return 12 months later and that being our stipulation.
And this committee can specify that we want coastal oaks if that's our choice,
We could.
Or we could defer to the
Or we could defer to the
arborist. I mean,
arborist.
it
Yeah,
could be,
agreed.
it could be argued that 7, 8, 9, 10 or 11 oaks on a lot this size with a 2,000 square foot house
Exactly.
is an unreasonable expectation, but I think the arborist defer to their professional.
That's his job.
I'd agree. Yeah. I think they are nice. I mean, they provide shade and screening from the neighbors, and the oaks around here are beautiful and create really wonderful living spaces under them. So generally, I would say that's a good idea. But again, I'm happy with deferring to the arborist. Great. Okay. No comment on the building itself.
Yeah, I think we need to sort of look at that too.
I mean, it meets all the development standards and design guidelines, and it's going to provide more maintained views for the hotel than currently. It's blighted buildings, so I think they're beautiful designs, and that street has been in disrepair for a while since I've lived here, and it's starting to look better, and this will add some beauty to the street.
Yeah, I'd hinted at that with my question about the heights. I wondered about swapping them. It's not at all, it's just a consideration, because it does look like the hotel is a little lower than the story poles. In some ways, that's a good thing. You would see a slightly higher building adjacent to another higher building and stepping down to a site with less height, but at the same time, that immediate adjacency, sometimes you compare, and that was also looked like the more potential views from that location being imposed. I don't feel that strongly about it. It was just something to consider. Generally in this case, I would generally defer to the applicant, and they've hopefully looked at it more. And but if that's something we wanted to consider, I would bring it up. But not feeling strongly either way. Just I'd hoped maybe that some consideration had gone in that direction as for massing. We like to think about those adjacencies, and wasn't sure if any consideration had been done there, but sounds like not really.
I like the proposed design of both of these projects, and I would I would go with the city staff's recommendation to approve.
So we'll need to just make us specify the items, I believe is 3 and 4. 4 and 5. So we'll
So
need it.
4 is 121 and 5 is 127.
So if we want to we'll entertain a motion for item 4.
Let's see any other.
Yeah, I'm not. They're within the zoning. I'll say that the water thing is frustrating. I think this is, I think it's a strange site to do speculative single family development. I think this is the type of site that is ripe for some of these new zoning regs that were discussed last night. Like, if you held on to this site for a little bit longer and you had more water, this is exactly the type of site that could have 4 to 6 small rental units on it. And that could be a model of development for how we address some of these smaller sites throughout that neighborhood. I'll say, I think that, and one of the reasons I asked for these projects to be discussed simultaneously is because I think there's like a lot of potential when you take 2 neighboring lots and you treat it as, you know, we're developing one big parcel and still acknowledging the setbacks and the area separations. Some of the issues that we're seeing with the view impediments of the hotel could have been solved with creatively massing these projects instead of just taking one big footprint and mirroring an identical copy of it on the neighboring parcel. You could have taken the second stories and offset them. You know, there's things you could have done architecturally to really make this a more interesting project. And what's been done is take the exact same floor plan and just sort of give it window dressing by giving one a flat roof and one a pitched roof. And it's just, it's not a lot of thought that's been put into it. So I don't think we have the grounds to deny it because again, it's within the zoning regulations, but there are a lot of factors here that I think this could have been a very interesting project. And it's a strange place for a single family speculative house. I think it is what it is with the water restrictions.
Yeah,
it is what it is, but there could have been a more creative approach on this parcel.
To that end, I'm looking at the opportunity sites in the housing element. There looks like 3 parcels down is identified. Is there just from the planning staff any reason why this wouldn't have been identified while the other one, in fact, 3 on El Dorado Street were identified? And what are the different?
Sure. So the actual individual opportunity sites that end up on the sites inventory for the housing element have to meet very specific criteria to qualify for us to be able to count that, and the state sets that criteria. So it has to do with the size of the property, whether or not it's already developed. So they kind of factor all those things into what the potential is for a site to be redeveloped if it's not a vacant site, and whether or not they'll count that as an opportunity site. So that's the reason it wasn't included, likely because it's already developed with residential units. With that being said, it was included in an overall opportunity zone that received, as Fernanda mentioned earlier, was rezoned last night at first reading to include a multifamily overlay that now allows development up to 60 dwelling units per acre. So while not specifically called out as an opportunity site in the housing element, it is identified as opportunity zone where additional density is permitted. And I'll also just note, while just responding to committee members Chair Polly's statements, it meets the zoning standards, the bulk standards of setbacks, lot coverage, and height, and that thing. It is the purview of this committee to look at things beyond that and the design elements of the project. And if that design can be improved upon based on the suggestions or recommendations of this committee, that is within the purview of this committee.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the density. I mean, so I think all we could say is, at this point though, is if the applicant would consider waiting for the opportunity to add more density to this, that would be very interesting, but that's not what they're applying for. So, I think it is our requirement to review this and as is. And I don't, while I agree with it kind of reaching the bar, and it's not super exciting. That's where it is hard to, to me, it's at least kind of meeting the bar, even if it's not as much as we might like in all instances like this.
I think that there's always a better way to do just about anything, especially if you get a bunch of people in a room. So but the real thing that's happening here is we're taking 2 shacks and we're putting 2 really nice new single family houses, which is going to help add, bedrooms to our community. Yeah, we could probably do it better. But if we wait for water, that may or may not happen. And these people have loans and money that is tied up in the waiting process of the city of Monterey, and we're doing the best we can. But yeah, I mean, I totally feel with you, Justin, about I see the frustration of, especially you being an architect, like, gosh, this is such a great opportunity. But I mean, it kind of is, it is what it is. I mean, I think, I'd hate to drag our feet so much that it costs the property owner more and more money waiting to get this project done, because I think in the long run, it's a huge boon for that street, and it's a lot better than what's there right now. And yeah, it could always be better. Absolutely.
We need to make motions separately for each, correct?
So
Yes,
if I
so-
make a motion,
Do you want
Go
to
ahead.
first do item number 4, 121 El Dorado?
Sure.
I move to approve 121 El Dorado Street application ARP-24-0109.
I'll second that.
With condition,
Or the second one's a
The
condition.
second one has,
Second one has a
I think
condition.
both have trees that could be impacted.
I don't think so. If you look at the surveys, the existing survey on 121 doesn't have trees on it.
But they're just changing landscaping.
Even if it's adjacent, I mean, it seems like it's a decent recommendation. but-
They're removing one 4-inch lemon tree, but it's not a
but not-
protected tree because it's less than 6-inch diameter.
And there aren't adjacent property trees and things that could be impacted.
There's a
Yeah, we're-
stump. but-
Just a 15
That's not,
inch stump, yeah.
okay, if we don't see any, again, I forgot to download it and the link's broken now. That's what I was trying to.
I'll double check
Okay,
on the
that's
survey
correct.
right now, but I don't think there's a. Bear with me a sec.
We could have Fernando bring it back up if you need to see it.
It's right here. Survey
As far as
shows,
we know.
yeah, survey shows nothing but an 18-inch stump and a lemon tree.
I take it back. Seems like a good idea in general, but
So we have a motion
right next to each other.
Made my motion.
and a second.
Did we get a second?
That was for me, I think.
Okay, great.
All those in, so we had a motion
Motion
from
second.
second, okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? I'm opposed. Nope.
Got it. Motion carries. We'll take a vote on the next project. This will be item 5, 127 El Dorado.
Now, have we considered and commented on this one? We're just going right to motion. So
There
I
you go.
move to approve 127 El Dorado Street application ARP 24-0105.
With the condition
With the
that the
condition.
city arborist visit the project 12 months
12 months.
after final approval to
Final
verify
approval.
the health of the trees and make recommendations for replacement if they're deceased or dying.
You got that, Spencer?
Second.
Yeah, it's all up here.
video. I got this on video.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? I'm opposed. No.
And that was a motion by,
I believe
And,
that was
committee member Tregenza.
Motion by me and seconded by,
I am, okay, thank you. Those are appealable to the planning commission with forms available online and in the planning office within 10 days.
Right, and I believe that was our final item.
Mhm.
Okay.
Any staff reports?
Spencer was hoping to get a quorum for December 18th. We have one item that is tentatively scheduled pending on story pole installation. And then we're also reporting on permits approved by staff. For the last reporting period, we approved 5 ARP permits and 1 sign permit. We are planning on bringing to you a discussion about architectural review projects that go to the committee for review versus projects that are approved by staff, and that we're planning on doing that next year. Just to give us some time to put together our recommendations and also get your feedback. Would you like to give news about last night?
Yeah, so for those who have been following our housing element journey, we did take forward the first phase of implementation measures and rezonings to the Planning Commission and City Council at a joint meeting last night. They adopted the proposed specific plan and zoning ordinance amendments with some minor revisions, but generally as presented. And so, yeah, we're very excited. Those will go forward to a second reading before going into effect. But a lot of good things coming out of the first phase of implementation.
When you say second reading, it's basically a carbon copy of the hearing that happened last night.
Typically, yes, ordinances require a first reading and they kind of get read into the record, and then they go back to and they have the public hearing, and then they'll go in for second reading at the following council meeting. Typically that would happen at the following meeting, but we believe we're seating council at the next meeting. So
great.
I believe I emailed Spencer that I am available the 18th. It turns out that I am not. So, I mean, do you guys want to tell us if we have a quorum for the 18th since we're all here?
we can definitely take a poll while we're all here.
I'm not.
I'm available.
I should be here.
Okay. Then you
Be
go.
here too.
All right. Thank
That's
you.
just barely, I guess.
We can still check in with Ed. He might.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ed did say he was available.
Oh, so good. We'll have 5.
And is that for the project that was continued tonight?
No,
No, that was continued to a date uncertain. So that'll be for a different project.
890 McClellan is tentatively scheduled pending on story polls.
All righty. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.